where our 4 crew members are continuing with their lunar flyby activities. They have just begun those activities really about 20 minutes ago, so we've got several hours of moon view opportunities. This is still a live view inside that capsule. However, you can see just how dark they have turned down the lights. Actually, they've turned them all the way off. There are a few LEDs that they cannot power off, but turning down these lights gives them better views outside of the spacecraft's windows while they photograph the moon. This also prevents any reflections from inside the spacecraft bouncing up on the windows and interfering with their photography. As we were previously discussing, the crew members are serving on teams, the first team being Commander Reed Wiseman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen at the windows photographing what they see. We heard reports earlier that they could see both the moon and the Earth in the same view, and we are looking forward to seeing the moon and the Earth in the same view as well. That Earth set coming up in just a few hours. While Wiseman and Hansen are at the windows photographing, Glover and Cook are serving as support crew. They are able to assist with cameras. They are also providing those situation reports, letting us know how the team is working inside the spacecraft, what they're seeing, and how they're feeling about it. Those first blocks of teams will last about an hour, and the crew members are approaching the halfway point into their first observation block. A reminder, we have 5 of those blocks today. So they're approaching this halfway point during which the crew at the window will switch roles. One will begin taking pictures, and the other will be making annotations on their PCD, that's portable computing device. Both of those crew members at the windows are recording audio of what they see. They are putting on headsets and recording audio into their portable computing devices. Obviously, we are not hearing this right now. This is going to be sent down to the science team, and they will be able to analyze that at a later time. What we are hearing, though, and will continue to hear, are those science sit reps a few times every block. Once this block is complete, about 40 minutes from now, we will have the teams switch. That means pilot Victor Glover and...
Science integrity, looking out of window 1. I think I may have misreported earlier saying that it was Tycho going over the horizon. That was Copernicus I was referring to. Apologies. It was Copernicus is what is farthest bounding to the east, and that is now like on the horizon or just past it. And Korolev is now a few degrees from going over the horizon. And then, next it'll be Aristarchus Plateau. And so on the west, we are getting a much better view of the Terminator. Looks like we have about 80% illumination of the moon. And Vavilov and 1 Vavilov diameter to the west is where the Terminator is right now. And so other features are starting to peek out there. The center of the illuminated part of the moon is, to the lower part is Oriental. And just around Oriental, a lot of light structure is starting to show up. A lot of high albedo, similar to the feature, I cannot remember, Burgess Alpha and Aristarchus type high albedo in the ring. So when you look at the interior ring and the external ring, it's almost as if the edges are starting to dry up and turn white. If it was something that was wet and got dry, the edges would be the part to dry first. You just kind of outline all the topography in the interior of that wall is like it was dusted with chalk or is starting to dry, or maybe dusted with snow. If this was the Earth, I would say there was snow dumped on some of the ridges on the interior of the rings of Orion. Also, an interesting part of the discussion that I heard between Reed and Jeremy is that from Geological to Grimaldi, there are two dark features there that look like commas, but in the wrong direction. But there's also a lot of interestingness, just a lot of geometry and squiggles and dots and lines that are starting to stand out as more small features come into view. And there also is a lot of variation in albedo. In some of those, the two dark features, for example, have on the southern edge of the larger one, the one that's further to the south, there's a very dark, the one albedo, like the southern and western part of Grimaldi. And the one to the north, closer to Geological, is also that same dark albedo. And then around them there are some very high albedo spots just to the north of the southern one, and just to the west of the smaller one to the north. Very high albedo, almost approaching the 10, a 9 or a 10, like Aristarchus. And lots of little bright spots are just starting to pop up on in this view. To the north, as you look up at the North Pole, there is a very distinct crater with a lot of a very defined central peak that is also 3 in albedo, and all of that area past it, going to the horizon, gets lighter and lighter, and is very, very high albedo. And I will go look and find the name of that feature if I can look that up. And then to the south, really getting some interesting geography and topography in the South Pole Aitken Basin. And the view of the South Pole is quite amazing. We've got some Terminator there, as well as the limb view, and there is a very distinct crater right at the South Pole. And I'm going to go look up, I don't believe that is Aiken, but I'm going to go look up the name of that one because it's also giving a lot of good topography due to the shadows that I'm seeing. But that's, I was trying to bound the view that I'm seeing for you, and I got distracted by all of these interesting albedo variations that are popping up in the interior. But that's the view that we see just a Vavilov diameter to the west beyond is where the Terminator is. Just beyond, I think Copernicus is the easternmost feature that we can see. A very nice ringed, very nice structure crater to the north with a great high albedo central uplift to the north, and the south is dotted by a very characteristic crater with a lot of terrain, shadow features, and I will go try to find some landmarks to put names with those. Any questions for the observation team?
Integrity Science, love the descriptions. You're definitely looking odd up there. Appreciate seeing the training being implemented. Especially interested in your descriptions of the dark patches. You compared the comma-looking features to the albedo you see in Grimaldi and notice that you're starting to see those color differences popping out. Any observations you want to make, especially when you get on, the PCD in a little bit, would really help us tease out the differences in those dark mare deposits. Great description, Victor. Keep them coming.
Absolutely will do, and I know you've got descriptions on both of the window observers right now as well. Keep them coming.
Great evidence of how well trained this crew is by the science team. NASA astronaut and pilot of the Artemis II mission, Victor Glover, calling down a situation report, noting several different features on the moon and such descriptions, even saying that it looks like snow on some of the peaks. Obviously, we do not expect that to be snow, but referencing that as some of the lighting on how it looks to the Artemis II crew from their current position. The team is slated to be switching their positions at the windows now. Both Reed Wiseman and Jeremy Hansen have been at windows 2 and 3, one taking photos, one making observations and annotations on their portable computing device. At this time, we also anticipate that they are looking at a crater duo. One of those is Glushko, and the other is Ohm. The team is looking to know the extent of Glushko's ray system and how its rays differ in the Mare versus the Highlands. They also want the team to compare the ray systems of Glushko to Ohm. Ohm is considered a young crater. And if you've ever seen a photo of the Richat structure, it's also known as the Eye of the Sahara. It's 40 kilometers in diameter, and that could fit within Ohm's interior. The team is specifically interested in descriptions of that ray visibility, including the color, albedo. Remember, albedo is the brightness or the surface reflection, and the reach. Again, I am using the same lunar targeting package that the crew is referencing on board right now. This helps keep them on time as well as prompt them for when they need to make a call down to the science team and report what they're saying. It also gives them reminders of when they need to swap positions at the windows. Additionally, I'm using the Artemis II Lunar Science Passport developed by Amber Turner and the Artemis II Lunar Science team. Now, this passport did not fly with the crew, but they used it extensively as a study guide here on Earth. So a lot of the descriptions and comparisons you hear today are developed directly by the science team. We are now 4 days, 20 hours, and 43 minutes.
Science, integrity, that crater to the north, that is, it's like we've got one in the north that looks like just a textbook crater, and one on the South Pole as well. The one on the north, I think, is Pythagoras. And what I wanted to highlight about that is it is either a very distinct central uplift or just a very defined area of high albedo. If a majority of the crater, especially the floor of the crater, is, say, an albedo of 5, this center, and only a tenth of the diameter of Pythagoras is an albedo of 2, maybe 3, but it is very bright and it stands out. And then between that crater and the actual what is the horizon from here, there seems to be another crater right on the horizon, and right on the edge of that is another patch of that albedo. It seems to be between the two craters. It's hard to tell from this grazing angle, but there is another spot just further north beyond Pythagoras. Between the two, I can draw a picture of this one and show you where that very high albedo, again, another 2 albedo surrounded by 5 and most of the area bounding it.
Integrity science, thanks for that. We agree with the Pythagoras assessment. And as a follow-up to your previous report, the SIR had questions about topography comparisons between the North Pole and the South Pole of the Moon, if you're willing to provide words on that.
Topography comparisons, absolutely. And if you have any idea what, if you draw a line between Pythagoras and the western edge of the outer defined ring of Orion, it intersects a beautiful textbook crater on the south. I would love to know the name of that. The topography differences, now the South Pole has a little bit of a benefit that it has more of the terminator, and I can see a little more shadowing there, but there's a nice crater right at the South Pole, so that's the main thing defining the topography there. Seems to be quite a bit of elevation change. I can see some very jagged shadows, a 90-degree just to the west of that crater at the South Pole. I can see a very distinct change in the shadow directions, indicating, I don't know, a very high wall or a very deep canyon just to the west of that. And in the north, it seems to be that from sort of the edge of the mare that's dark, which is maybe 1 Pythagoras diameter south. If you draw a ring about that, maybe the top 7 degrees of the moon, and just draw a ring around that. The near side is an albedo of 5 and looks quite smooth from here. And then along the same edge of the mare, the edge of the mare that kind of Grimaldi's just outside of, Glushko is just outside of, Carroll Crater is just outside of, and you start to see the stark differences between the darker 7/8 and the 5s and 6s, the 4s and 5s. If you follow that line up to the north, that line is also where the change in topography happens at the North Pole. The line defining the light and dark on the edge of the mare that you can see from Earth. Draw that line, roughly the midpoint of all that, straight to the North Pole. And on the side facing the Earth, you see smoother topography and dotted by Pythagoras and its next-door neighbor crater. And then on the far side, you see a lot more cratering and a lot more topography. And again, the far side has the benefit of a little terminator there, but I am seeing a variation in the topography. It seems to be more jagged and a more challenging place to find a place to land and to even traverse in the south. All around the South Pole. And at the North Pole, it seems to be, it would be more challenging to translate on the far side of the North Pole compared to the near side of the North Pole around Pythagoras.
Copy all, Victor. You really help paint a contextual picture of what you're looking at. We really appreciate the way that you're guiding us into the areas you're seeing by drawing comparisons between recognizable features. Thanks for that.
And Kelsey, another little science sit rep moment, something I just heard from the window team is the more I look at the moon, the browner and browner it looks. I thought that was an interesting observation. The 2 observers have been on timeline, no hardware issues. They did start to talk a little bit about another feature that you'll hear more about on the recordings that they call the handprint. That was at the end of their Glushko and before they moved into their current target. They thought that was worth chatting a little bit more about. And they're preparing to switch after this.
Houston copies and concurs.
Hey, Houston Science, actually Houston and Science Integrity, another just observation from the human. My eyes have shifted a little bit since I've been up here. I've been wearing my reading glasses to look at the PCD. Well, this is a very taxing event on the the eyes, looking out the window and seeing the very bright moon, then coming back inside to the dark cabin and trying to work cameras and microphones and logistics and lunch and those kinds of things, and then looking at the PCD, which is dimly lit. It's just been an exercise. It is a difficult thing to manage it. I'm up and down on the glasses and then having to wait as my eyes adjust when I come back in. As soon as I look back into the cabin from looking out the window, I can feel my eyes adjusting, and I just have to work through it as they adjust.
Appreciate that report, Victor, and know that we are prepared to read you up targets from the ground if that would give you the ability to keep your eyes focused on the moon and not having to swap between that and the PCD. Just let us know.
Yeah, we appreciate that, science, and we will also do that for the window teams, and we'll back each other up that way as well. But we appreciate that. We may take you up on that. Thanks.
Continued detailed descriptions from the Artemis II crew aboard Orion. Again, this is a test flight, the first time we've flown humans aboard this spacecraft. So every detail, even that it's difficult to look outside the window and then back at the PCD, that portable computing device, every single detail is appreciated as we prepare for future missions. Glover also mentioned that he is now wearing his glasses now that he's in space and that his eyes have shifted a bit. This is something that happens when our astronauts go to space. There is a fluid shift from the lower half of your body up into your head, and that can cause changes in your eyes. It's something that we have seen over time for some crew members, especially now that we have been living and working on the International Space Station for over 25 years. Again, it's clear that these Artemis II astronauts have undergone extensive lunar science training, including classroom instruction, fieldwork, and high-fidelity simulations. Training expeditions even took place in analog environments like the Icelandic Highlands and the Kemasassen impact crater in Labrador, where crews practiced identifying and describing geologic features under varying conditions. Additionally, here at Johnson Space Center, Orion mock-ups were used to rehearse crew choreography, including three-dimensional space management with an inflatable moon globe to simulate the flyby. And while on Earth, the crew also used that small lunar passport that I mentioned with descriptions, photos, and prompts to help them study the features we hope they'll see. Now, this is a view from their lunar targeting package at this time, helping them determine what they're seeing on the moon, as well as on the left, keep up with what their next target will be. As you can see, we have got a long list and an exciting day ahead of us. It's now been 4 days, 20 hours, and 53 minutes since Orion launched atop the Space Launch System rocket from Kennedy Space Center in Florida with our 4 crew members aboard. NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Cook, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The Artemis II crew passed a major milestone today when they passed the Apollo 13 distance record at 12:57 p.m. Central, 1:57 p.m. Eastern. That Apollo 13 distance record was 248,655 statute miles from Earth.
And Houston, another observation, whole moon. When you look at the moon, something I've never seen in photographs before but is very apparent, all the really bright new craters. Some of them are super tiny. Most of them are pretty small. There's a couple that really stand out, obviously. And what it really looks like is like a lampshade with tiny pinprick holes and the light shining through. They are so bright compared to the rest of the moon.
We copy, Christina. Thank you. Looks like you guys might be doing it, but remind you to swap positions at the window and take your SD cards with you. We're loving everything that you're calling down, so keep it up.
Again, Orion previously surpassed that the Apollo 13 greatest distance from Earth by humans. That was 248,655 statute miles from Earth, and Orion now 250,294 miles away from our home planet. The spacecraft is 9,033 miles away from the moon and growing ever closer. At its closest approach, it'll be about 4,070 miles away, and we will make sure we confirm what that distance ends up being. This is an approximation and an estimate ahead of that moment. We're anticipating them to make that closest approach at 6:02 p.m. Central, 7:02 Eastern, when they are in a loss of signal, transiting behind the moon. They will be the first humans in over 50 years to fly behind the moon and lose contact with Earth. We will regain that contact about 40 minutes later as they reconnect to the Deep Space Network, emerging from behind the moon, and we will look forward to seeing an Earthrise. Again, the crew is currently in their position swap portion on their timeline. This allows crew members the opportunity and the experience of all roles necessary during today's flyby. Right now, those two crew members at the window have swap positions. Again, the crew at the windows swapping positions. Right now, that crew is Commander Reed Wiseman and Mission Specialist Jeremy Hansen, while Victor Glover and Christina Cook serve as their support flyby crew members. That's why you are hearing Victor and Christina during those science situation reports. Those voices will change in about 30 minutes when they take a turn taking photos and making annotations while at the window.
Houston, integrity. I wanted to provide an observation or a little bit of descriptive nature on something that we saw on the first day we had good moon views. This was when we saw more of the near side, and the ground helped me out with identifying Mare Imbrium. Mare Imbrium, when you have the western limb also in view, looks completely different than the normal view we have of the near side. It is the most striking feature of the western limb view that we had, and the mountain chains that form its eastern side are very prominent, but they actually stand out more than I'm used to seeing even on the western side, and the whole thing just feels like a big bump. It actually looks like a large healing wound with a high albedo forming the mountain chain around the impact basin. And I just don't think I had enough chance to describe how striking it was on that western limb view as we were coming in a couple days ago.
Christina, science, absolutely love that, especially since that's a feature that all of us here on Earth can observe from home. So I'm sure tonight everyone's going to be going out and looking for evidence of that beautiful topography you just said. Thanks for those words.
The view on your screen coming from Orion, a camera mounted on the spacecraft's solar array wing. Toward the right of your screen, the near side is the hemisphere we see from Earth. That is identifiable by those dark splotches, which are ancient lava flows.
Science integrity. A question and a comment. Question is it possible that we're seeing a Schrodinger basin from this vantage point in the Terminator at the South Pole? And the comment is the rays coming out of are less distinct. We are not seeing the bright